Hello, my name is Jacqueline Simsick, and this is my interpersonal communication project for the Studies in Interpersonal Communication course at Liberty University Online. The following is a compilation of the information that I have learned throughout this 8-week course and will be presented into 5 main sections. Next slide. The first section will be personal overarching goals. In this section, I'll discuss some issues that I've come across in the communication process and how I intend to develop past them. Next will be behavioral blend. At this point, I'll share a little bit about my background as well as the results of my personality assessments and describe what they mean. Next will be potential barriers. Here, I'll uncover the barriers that prevent me from communicating effectively, then present some solutions that I intend to utilize in the future. Next will be noise pollution. In this section, I will identify noise pollution, what it is specifically, and provide some solutions to it. Lastly will be my plan of action. Here I'll provide an action plan that will help me improve my overall interpersonal communication skills. Next slide. Before I begin, I would like to give you a brief overview of what communication is. According to Stewart, interpersonal communication can be defined as the kind of communication that happens when the people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the presence of the personal. In earlier parts of the text, Stewart likens the communication process to exhaling, which is the message being sent by the speaker, and inhaling, which is the message being received by the listener. This can be done simultaneously through verbal and nonverbal cues. For example, when a speaker is talking, they are verbally sending messages to the listener. However, if the listener is not making any kind of oral noises, but has a bored expression or seems disinterested, they're also sending a message through their body language. Next slide. While trying to identify my overarching goals, I considered the mistakes I've made in the past with others. The more severe of these instances has taught me the importance of not only delivering a message effectively, but also in a way that is in line with biblical values and advocates for positivity. To help me do this, I developed a brief mission statement that I believe follows these basic principles. And it goes as follows: to communicate with others in a way that promotes an atmosphere of trust and genuine interest while encouraging a free exchange of thoughts and ideas. I will work diligently to show the love of Christ by providing a safe haven that removes the overwhelming concern of judgment or scorn. The biblical verse that I used to help me develop this was Luke 6:37 to 38. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. More specifically, I intend to try to focus on communicating effectively and empathetically in a way that influences interpersonal relationship to a higher level of trust and freedom. Also, to be more positive about life by depending on God, by helping me build relationships with others, by getting to know them better, and to exercise patience when I'm handling my own emotional investment in the interactions with others. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation can be seen as maintaining an open and honest line of communication that allows each participant to be both seen and heard in turn. It creates a more sufficient exchange of information by utilizing methods and techniques that maximizes the benefits of both talking and listening. The term itself can be understood with two important goals described by Peterson as ownership, which is taking responsibility for the feelings and thoughts that are ours, and openness, which makes it clear that we are open to other people and that they too are people who have something to offer. Next slide. To help you better understand how my particular level of communication has been and continues to be developed, I want to give you a little insight into my personal background. I'm a 31-year-old Hispanic female. My grandparents came to the United States from Puerto Rico, making me the third generation living in this country. I'm the second eldest of 14 children. This is a blend of step siblings and half siblings. I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, where I served for 4 years. I've been married for 11 years. My husband was also in the Marine Corps, which is how we met. I am originally from Chicago. However, my family and I moved around quite a bit, and my military career took me to California, both North and South Carolina, Hawaii, and of course, Iraq and Kuwait. My husband and I are currently settled in Ohio. I completed my undergraduate work through Liberty University and earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I'm now completing my master's degree in human services counseling. Next slide. All of this information is leading up to what my behavioral blend is. During the course of this class, we explored the DISC model, which describes personality types and breaks it down into 4 different categories. While there are 4 categories, many people are a blend of these types, which are placed into the D, I, S, and C. These are broken down into active, passive, task-oriented, and people-oriented categories. This is then taken further down into this is expected of me and this is me. Next slide. I had a little trouble reconciling the results of my behavioral blend with how I perceive my personality to actually be. So I actually took the assessment a second time and was surprised to still receive the S type. However, after examining the results further, it began to make a little more sense. What is expected of me and what I am are the same. I am a blend of S, D, and C, which is passive people-oriented, active task-oriented, and passive task-oriented. This makes me both direct and submissive, but also primarily task-oriented. Prior to the beginning of this class, I took the Myers-Briggs assessment, which breaks down personalities into 16 different categories. These categories are a mix of introverted, extroverted, intuitive thinking, feeling, sensing, and judging, perceiving. My result was INFJ. Shortly after taking the DISC assessment, I retook the Myers-Briggs and still received the same result. So I am an INFJ. While comparing the two, I was able to finally understand how I fit into these areas and what this new self-awareness can do for me. According to my interpersonal skills assessment, I scored an 82 out of 100. This means that I'm highly proficient at interpreting the words and actions of others, as well as being able to place myself into their position. This seems to fit in line with my S-type from the DISC model and my N function from the Myers-Briggs model. Next slide. Now, there are lots of barriers that influence communication on the general level, but I've narrowed it down to 3 that I would like to explore a little further. The first barrier is biased listening. This occurs when the listener is inferring the meaning behind what the speaker is saying, which may or may not be correct, but can still create dissension. To counter this, we should practice the 2 levels of communication described by Peterson. On level 1, we are able to receive the simple, unfiltered facts, whereas on level 2, we're able to address the issue at hand on a deeper level, but still with some clarity. The next barrier is a physical barrier. Here, the state of our bodies are affecting our ability to communicate well. In this case, it's best to avoid conversation during stressful moments so that we can give the discussion its proper measure. Lastly is flat brain syndrome. This occurs when the stomach, heart, and brain functions are too full to operate properly, resulting in illogical thinking. Peterson suggests that we try 4 steps to combat this. Reduce emotional disturbance. This can be done by allowing them to release their feelings. Clarify thinking. This comes by listening and assessing. Increase self-confidence, which allows them to manage their own problems and simply listen respectfully. And finally, build supportive relationships or friendships. This enables people in a positive way to move forward. Next slide. The following is a list of ways that can help improve listening skills and promote positive communication. First, understand the importance of listening. Show a genuine desire to listen. Plan ahead, if possible, to remove any external distractions. Avoid letting preoccupation, pressure, and or priority get in the way. Be patient. Keep an open mind and practice critical listening. To really highlight the importance of these tools, I'd like to share with you a real life example. Not too long ago, I had a client come to my office. She simply just wanted to talk. Typically, our conversations at that point were very informal, so very shortly after she began speaking, I began to shuffle and file paperwork. I became so preoccupied that she very politely, but also very poignantly, asked me to stop. Her exact words were, "I just really need you to listen." I would venture to say that had I exercised these listening skills, she would not have become frustrated and have to point out to me that she needed my full attention. Next slide. Which brings us to our next point, internal noise pollution. Internal noise pollution are things that are within yourself that you can control, but may require some practice. For example, biased listening, physical barriers, emotion, and hearing what you want to hear. Some ways to solve this are to use clarifying techniques, such as repeating what a person said to make sure you heard them correctly, or even just asking them to expound on what they're saying so you can get a better understanding. Next slide. There's also the issue of external noise pollution. External noise pollution are things that may or may not be in your immediate control, such as loud noises in your general area, the temperature of the room. If it's too hot or too cold, it may affect your ability to concentrate, time deadlines, and just overactive scenery. These are all things that can draw your attention away from the speaker and hinder your effectiveness as a listener. Again, these are things that may or may not be in your control. However, if it is possible, some things to try looking to do are looking directly at the speaker, avoiding holding multiple things at once, and focusing on what they are actually saying. Next slide. In order to apply what I've learned, I developed a plan of action. This allows me not only to continue to grow and develop in my field, it also provides me with a way to give my personal areas of improvement the attention it deserves. First, it's important for me to be able to identify the times that I become frustrated or impatient in the communication process. Next, I need to exercise the clarifying technique whenever necessary and recognize and respond to emotions in order to minimize internal and external noise pollution. And finally, I should continue with my journey of inner reflection and self examination on a regular basis so as to continuously improve my techniques and skills. Next slide. In summary, the topics that I've covered today include my overarching goals, enlarging the conversation, my personal background and behavioral blend, my own personal barriers to interpersonal communication, internal and external noise pollution, as well as possible solutions for the last two topics. And lastly, a plan of action to help me as I move forward. I want to thank you for the time and attention that you've given me throughout this presentation. I hope that this presentation has been insightful and informational for you. And on the next slide, you will find my bibliography. Here you can research all of the information that I've given you today. I would like to close out with a scriptural reading from Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. Thank you again, and have a great day.